Hi everybody, I wanted to go over the sentence diagrams of the exam with you to make sure that you're understanding everything and especially feeling comfortable going into the final and as we wrap up the course. I did make comments on your individual sentence diagrams that you sent me, but hopefully this will give you more detail and maybe clear up any misconceptions that you still might have. So the first one, we have two independent clauses joined by the conjunction and. So the first one, then we have the subject Joseph Smith, action verb dedicated. He dedicated what? The Kirtland Temple. And then we have in 1836, which is a prepositional phrase answering the question when, functioning as an adverb, so it goes underneath the verb. So that's a pattern 7 with subject, verb, and direct object. We have our and, our conjunction in the middle, connecting the two clauses. The second subject is prayer, and then we have our be verb is. And D&C 109 is a prepositional phrase which goes underneath the verb and then the two modifiers. So we have subject and be verb, which makes that a pattern 1. Number 2, we start with a clause. We're going to skip that for just a minute and go to the main sentence here. Subject is we. Must recognize. Some of you missed that must is a helping verb, so that needs to be put on that main line with the verb. The main verb, the meaning carrying verb, is recognize. And recognize what? Promises. We have our two modifiers, and then in D&C 109 again is the prepositional phrase. This could either go under promises here to modify where those promises are, or to clarify what those promises, or if you looked at it as answering the question where, you could put it underneath the verb. I accepted both of those. The because goes in between. It's a subordinating conjunction connecting the two. And then the adverbial clause at the beginning. We have temple is the subject, our be verb, ending with an adjective. So subject, be verb, adjective makes that a pattern 2. Number 3, we have our main clause, Lord promises, subject, verb, promises what? A lot of you missed this because of the clause that's in the middle. We have us who worship in the temple. So if you reconstruct this sentence, cut out this clause for a minute and reorganize things. The Lord promises his protection to us. When you add that to, it makes it clear that that's an indirect object and protection is a direct object. So we have subject, verb, direct object, and indirect object makes that a pattern 8. The Lord promises his protection to us. And then we go back to this clause that's kind of separating everything. And it is clarifying us. So we have who is the subject, worship is the verb, and then in the temple is the prepositional phrase. So that makes that a pattern 6. Number 4, temple, subject, be verb, and place, noun, with the two modifiers below. So that is subject, be verb, noun makes that pattern 3. Our modifiers and articles go below. And then we have our second clause. We can feel are the two verbs. Calm is the adjective. Feel, any verbs of sense, such as feel, is going to be a linking verb. So linking verb with an adjective on the end makes that a pattern 4. Where is going to go underneath because it's functioning as an adverb. So it's a subordinating conjunction, but it goes in the place of the adverb. And so the temple is where. Those are how those two words are related. Or alternately, we would accept place, where. Either way, that works. Number 5. We have two independent clauses separated by a semicolon in this case. So we have world is a subject, seems, linking verb, overwhelming is an adjective. So that makes that a pattern 4. Nothing connecting them because they're joined by a semicolon. Our second clause, we have temple, can give. We have the two verbs there. perspective. Give what? Give perspective is the direct object, and us is the indirect object. Again, that is more clear if you reorder things, put direct object and then the indirect object. So the temple can give perspective to us, and sticking that to in helps clarify why that is an indirect object. We have our modifiers below, and then we have however, the conjunctive adverb, and because that's an adverb, it goes underneath the verb, not in between. As soon as you have a semicolon, you know that those are two separate clauses, and so the conjunctive adverb goes below. So subject, verb, direct object, and indirect object makes that a pattern 8. Number 6, we know is the start of the main clause. We know what? There is an implied that here. We know that the holy temple is the house of the Lord. So when you put that in there, it helps clarify the relative pronoun introduces the noun clause that's following. So we know that. We know something. So we know that that's the pattern 7, subject, verb, and then this whole thing is functioning as a direct object. So now let's go up to the noun clause. We have temple is what? House. So that's a noun. We have our be verb. So temple, be verb, noun as the subjective complement makes that a pattern 3. And we have our modifiers here, and then house of the Lord. Of is the preposition, so that turns that into a prepositional phrase. Number 7, again, we're going to focus on the main clause first and then go back. So we have temple. The 2 commas should immediately indicate that this can be removed and is kind of an insertion, dividing up the main clause. Temple teaches. Teaches what? There's no direct object here. Instead, we've got a preposition. So about the Savior's atonement is diagrammed below. So we have temple teaches, subject, action, verb with no direct object makes that a pattern 6. And then we have a noun clause, which is describing temple. So, excuse me, a relative clause, adjective, which is clarifying temple. Late at night, my brain's turning off. So we have which, the relative pronoun, which indicates that we have a clause coming up, is the verb. House is the noun, so we have subject, be verb, house, makes that a pattern 3. Of learning is our preposition, also is the conjunctive adverb. As soon as you see conjunctive adverb, because it is an adverb, it goes below the verb and not in between. And we're talking about temple and which. So this clause is clarifying temple, so those are the 2 things that are connected there. Number 8. We have an introductory clause here. We're going to skip that. And remember that main clauses always go on top. It doesn't go in the order of the context of the sentence. What comes first in the sentence goes first when you diagram. The main clause is what we diagram first. So we change subject, action, verb, no direct object because we have a preposition. So we have into white clothes, which goes below, so that makes this a pattern 6. We enter the temple as is a conjunction, so we use that to connect. Our subject is we, enter is our action verb, enter what? We enter the temple. So that would be pattern 7. The alternate here is you could say we enter and the implied preposition would be into the temple. So you could diagram that as a prepositional phrase with the understanding that there's a preposition here. Number 9. The service that we render in the temple has an internal influence. So we know that we have our noun here, but then we immediately have our relative pronoun that's introducing a clause. So we're going to kind of block that clause mentally for a minute. So we have the service has an internal influence as our main clause. Service, subject has, verb has what? Influence. It has influence. So influence is acting as the direct object with our modifiers below. And then we will go back to the clause that we have. Subject is we, renders the verb, we render what? That. The pronoun is serving the place of the direct object. So we have subject, direct object, subject, verb, direct object, which makes that a pattern 7. And then we have our prepositional phrase in the tempo that goes below. And the relative clause here is modifying service, giving us a more clear idea of what that service is. So the line is connecting service to the relative pronoun. And then number 10, the Holy Temple can give us strength and power, is the first clause. So we have temple, our two verbs can give. Give what? Give strength and power to us. Again, if you reorder, put the direct object first and then the indirect object with that implied to. That makes it more clear. And so we have subject, action verb, direct objects, and our indirect object makes that in pattern 8 with our modifiers underneath. And then we go on to the second clause, while we struggle with life and problems. While is a subordinating conjunction, so it is written on the line in between, connecting the two, showing how they're related. Our subject is we, verb is struggle, and then this is followed by a preposition with. So there's no direct object. Instead, we have a prepositional phrase that is diagrammed below. So we have we, struggle, subject, verb, which makes that a pattern 6.